When most people picture a zombie apocalypse, the imagination runs wild with collapsing cities, panicked mobs, and the constant soundtrack of moans echoing through abandoned streets. Inevitably, one idea seems to crawl out of every survivalist's brain sooner or later: the bunker. That underground fortress of solitude, concrete-clad, steel-sealed, and movie-approved. On paper, it looks like a cheat code. After all, if Hollywood has taught us anything, it's that when the world collapses, the safest place is somewhere deep underground, preferably with a blast door thick enough to make a tank jealous. The very word bunker whispers reassurance, strong walls, hidden location, quiet isolation. It practically begs you to believe you've outsmarted the apocalypse. But here's the real question. Are bunkers the salvation their reputation suggests, or are they a ticking clock disguised as a fortress? Start with the obvious perk: defense. A bunker is essentially the turtle of the human housing world. Zombies can scratch, claw, and groan until their decaying fingernails fall off, but against reinforced concrete and a steel hatch, they might as well be gnawing on a bank vault. The undead aren't exactly famous for puzzle solving. You'll never see a zombie sitting down with a screwdriver kit or debating the merits of lockpicking. They push, they bite, they slam, and when that fails, they continue to slam until gravity or rot takes them. Against such a brainless offensive, thick walls and narrow entry points are nothing short of unfair advantage. In terms of brute security, a bunker is like putting yourself inside a concrete safe and throwing away the combination. It doesn't end there, because bunkers are built underground and often hidden far from prying eyes. Their mere invisibility is half the defense. You can't raid what you can't find. Most aren't stumbled upon during a casual jog downtown. They're buried in forests, deserts, or rural wastelands. Their remoteness serves as an invisible moat, keeping the worst zombie herds at bay simply by distance. If the cities are clogged with undead traffic jams, the countryside bunker owner is sipping canned soup in relative silence, watching chaos play out on a solar-powered TV screen. In an apocalypse where noise and exposure are often the silent assassins of survivors, being unseen and unheard is the kind of tactical edge that keeps you alive longer than luck ever could. And about that silence, bunkers are the kings of muffling. Soundproof walls mean your late-night arguments, accidental hammer swings, or even your impromptu karaoke nights won't echo across a valley and summon every flesh-hungry neighbor in a 5-mile radius. You could, in theory, rehearse your Broadway debut underground without so much as a growl above ground. Compare this to life in a cabin or abandoned apartment, where even boiling water could act like a dinner bell for nearby predators. In a bunker, your secrets stay your own, whether it's the smell of cooking food or the questionable playlist you refuse to delete. Beyond defense, bunkers offer something most apocalyptic survivors can only dream of: environmental stability. Tornado ripping through the countryside? Not your problem. Wildfire licking at rooftops? Irrelevant. Nuclear fallout drifting on the wind? Just another day beneath 6 feet of dirt and steel. Even blizzards and heat waves become background noise when you're encased underground. Essentially, bunkers allow you to hit the mute button on nature's chaos. It's a climate-controlled panic room where the weather report always reads, safe, with a chance of boredom. Then comes storage, one of the most overlooked advantages. A bunker isn't just 4 walls and a hatch. It's often designed with shelves, compartments, and enough floor space to rival a small Costco. While most survivors above ground spend their days cramming cans into backpacks or scavenging through overturned vending machines, the bunker dweller has the luxury of organization. Rows of beans, rice, medical supplies, batteries, and even luxury items like chocolate bars can sit neatly labeled on shelves, waiting to be consumed. Planning for the long term actually becomes possible instead of a daily panic of what do we eat tonight. The bunker lets you shift from survival mode into logistics mode, where mistakes are fewer, stress is lower, and the odds of seeing the next sunrise improve dramatically. But the real ace up the bunker's sleeve is self-sufficiency. Many come equipped, or at least designed, with water filtration, air purification, and backup power systems. Add solar panels, battery banks, or even a hydroponic setup, and suddenly you're not just scraping by. You're thriving underground while the surface world burns. Imagine munching on fresh lettuce grown in your subterranean greenhouse, while other survivors gnaw on stale granola bars. It's survival deluxe, the five-star hotel version of the apocalypse. Properly equipped, a bunker could theoretically sustain not just you, but generations, creating a miniature underground civilization shielded from the chaos above. For anyone who's ever dreamed of being the last one standing, bunkers whisper promises of longevity that no tent or shack could ever match. And yet, like every deal that sounds too good to be true, bunkers hide a list of caveats big enough to make you pause. Here's the cruelest truth. Supplies, no matter how extensive, are finite. Stockpile enough beans and rice to make a warehouse blush, and eventually the shelves will empty. Medicine runs out, batteries die, fuel tanks drain, and water purification systems need replacement parts. The moment you close the hatch, an invisible clock begins ticking. Every meal, every sip, every bandage brings you closer to the day you open the pantry and find nothing but dust. Above ground, there's always a chance to scavenge, hunt, or trade. Underground, you've locked yourself into a bubble, and when that bubble bursts, the walls you trusted to save you suddenly become the prison bars of your starvation. Isolation only adds to the problem. At first, solitude feels like peace. No screaming, no constant moaning outside, no risk of waking up to find a ghoul chewing on your ankle. But humans aren't built for endless silence. Weeks turn to months, and the quiet morphs into something heavier. Cabin fever creeps in. Small arguments between group members erupt like nuclear meltdowns. A sideways glance becomes a declaration of war. Paranoia festers, and trust starts to corrode. Even family bonds can crumble under the pressure of living in a metal tube underground. And if you're alone, the lack of human contact becomes even worse. Depression, anxiety, hallucinations, the mind rebels against confinement. When the walls don't break you, your brain just might. Ventilation presents another terrifying Achilles heel. Fresh air isn't optional, it's essential, and in a bunker it relies entirely on fans, filters, and intake systems. If one breaks, clogs, or gets contaminated, your fortress of safety transforms into a suffocation chamber. Unlike patching a roof or barricading a door, repairing air systems requires specific parts and technical knowledge. If you don't have those, you may find yourself choking on the irony of dying not from a zombie bite, but from your own recycled poison. Disease, too, takes on new meaning underground. In the cramped quarters of a bunker, one cough can take down the whole group. Illness spreads like wildfire when there's no fresh air, no open space, and no hospital down the street. Sanitation becomes a nightmare in slow motion. Waste piles up, bacteria breeds, and every cut or infection becomes a potential death sentence. The undead outside may be grotesque, but the unseen microbes inside might be far deadlier. Every fortress has its weak point, and in the case of bunkers, it's not the walls or the hatch. It's the fragile thread of technology humming quietly in the background, the electricity that makes everything work. Power is the bloodstream of underground living. It keeps the lights on, the air moving, the food cold, the water pumping, and the radios buzzing. Pull the plug on that, and suddenly the strongest bunker becomes little more than a damp, lightless tomb. Generators run on fuel, which doesn't exactly refill itself in a wasteland. Solar panels are a beautiful dream until a stray storm, a falling tree, or even a pile of bird droppings turns your energy source into a useless sheet of glass. Batteries don't last forever either. They degrade, lose capacity, and require replacements you can't order from Amazon anymore. Once the energy dies, the house of cards collapses. Your perfect climate control dissolves into damp darkness. Your food spoils, the water doesn't flow, and your ventilation stops. You're left with silence, stale air, and the realization that all the luxury was only rented time. The irony of bunkers is that they trick you into believing permanence is possible. The reinforced walls and stockpiles lull you into a false sense of immortality. But everything is temporary in a world where maintenance crews don't exist. Every bolt, every filter, every solar cell is a countdown waiting to expire. Unless you're an engineer with redundant systems, spare parts, and the patience of a saint, you're playing a long game with a final score is entropy 1, you 0. And then there's the strategic nightmare, immobility. A bunker, by design, anchors you in one spot. The very thing that makes it strong, its rooted permanence, becomes the seed of vulnerability. Above ground, survival is tied to mobility. You can move, adapt, shift locations, outwit predators, and stay unpredictable. Underground, you've traded adaptability for a single bet, that no one ever finds you. But in a world where desperation drives both zombies and humans alike, discovery is not a matter of if, but when. Picture the scenario. A roaming horde stumbles across your hatch. At first, they pound uselessly, unable to break through. But the noise attracts more, until eventually your camouflage paradise is surrounded by hundreds of moaning corpses. You're safe inside, yes, until you're not. You can't leave, you can't forage, you can't even peek outside without risking the entire mob noticing. Congratulations, you've just upgraded from survivor to voluntary prisoner. And human threats? Even worse. Raiders can't resist the allure of a bunker. To a desperate group on the outside, an underground fortress screams treasure chest. Food, medicine, tools, the kind of wealth that keeps people alive. If someone decides they want your bunker, you're in trouble. Unlike zombies, raiders think, plan, and strategize. They can wait you out, cut off air intakes, or flood escape tunnels. Suddenly, your fortress feels less like a castle and more like a trap designed by your own hands. Escape tunnels, often praised as the backup plan, sound heroic in theory, but rarely deliver in practice. A cramped, narrow shaft that spits you out somewhere safe is only safe if no one has found the exit. Otherwise, you're crawling into an ambush. Even if it is clear, emerging after weeks of confinement only to face the wide-open chaos of a zombie-filled wilderness is the kind of rude awakening that makes you wonder why you ever thought the bunker was a long-term fix in the first place. Beyond logistics and strategy, let's return to the human element, because psychology is the slow poison of bunker life. While boredom is a universal complaint in survival stories, underground it takes on a special potency. The lack of sunlight strips away your sense of time. Days blur into nights, nights blur into days, until you're no longer sure if you've been underground for 3 months or 3 decades. Sleep schedules crumble. Tempers flare. The same 4 walls that once reassured you begin to mock you. The mind, deprived of change, begins to gnaw on itself. Even if you're well-fed, well-supplied, and surrounded by loyal companions, the mental strain of unending sameness is a danger no reinforced hatch can keep out. Some of history's darkest lessons echo here. Submariners, miners, and polar researchers all know the toll of isolation. In extreme confinement, arguments that would normally end in eye rolls can escalate into grudges that fester. Trust erodes. Leadership falters. In the worst cases, groups implode not because of outside pressure, but because of the corrosive effect of being trapped together too long. The zombie apocalypse might not kill you, but your cabin fever might. And yet, for all its flaws, the bunker's lure doesn't vanish. It's too tempting. It promises the one thing no other shelter can: immediate peace of mind. The first nights of the outbreak are chaos incarnate. Cities crumble, screams fill the air, and panic reigns. In that maelstrom, the ability to slam a steel door shut and know you are untouchable is worth more than gold. A bunker offers not just safety, but the illusion of control in a world spiraling into madness. It buys you time, which is the most precious currency in an apocalypse. Time to plan, time to think, time to breathe without glancing over your shoulder. But it's a loan, not a gift. The price eventually comes due. Supplies dwindle, systems falter, sanity wanes, and the immobility becomes unbearable. A bunker is a sanctuary at the start, a prison in the middle, and a tomb at the end if you cling to it too long. It works brilliantly as a short-term haven, a launch pad for survival, but disastrously as a final destination. The irony is that survival, at its core, thrives on adaptability. The people who endure the longest aren't those who cling to walls, but those who flow with circumstance. Hunters who learn the land, scavengers who turn ruins into resources, wanderers who stay light and unpredictable. The bunker gives you the illusion that you can opt out of the apocalypse, that you can close the hatch and wait for the storm to pass. But storms don't pass in a world where the dead walk forever. So, are bunkers good in a zombie apocalypse? They're both the best idea you've ever had and the worst mistake you'll ever make. They shield you from the chaos, buy you precious time, and give you a head start. But they also chain you to a countdown you can't win. The real skill lies not in hiding underground forever, but in knowing when to step out, when to trade the steel shell for the uncertainty of open skies. In the end, the bunker isn't the end game, it's the pause button. And in a world where survival is the only game left, you can't keep the pause button pressed forever.